Let's start off by going into the heart of the earth, and we get a tiny little snippet of a glimpse of that place in Isaiah chapter 14. And let's start here in verse 5, where perhaps verse 4, because it's the Lord himself speaking here and not Isaiah. So the Lord, right, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased. The Lord had broken the staff of the wicked, and the sceptre of the rulers. So he's broken their power. The Lord, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. So the picture you get is this wicked leader, ruler, king over Babylon, or the Lord had broken the staff of the wicked and the sceptre of the rulers, talking about the kings. This ruler in particular being the king of Babylon is the picture you get. And this king being gone, rid of, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feather is come up against us. So you picture these kings building their palaces back then with fir trees and wood and everything else. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, he's dead, right? No feather is come up against us. And that's one thing we get these days, the wicked rulers, leaders, the powers that be, the big businesses and what have you, the kings of the earth, the great men of the earth, whoever they are, whether they're kings on the surface or kings behind the scenes, whoever they are, they're the trees would even rejoice when they are gone. We all know that the forests and the trees are all being cut down and everything else for lusts of the flesh and power and greed and money and wealth and everything else. So even the trees in this sense would rejoice when such leaders are dead, buried and gone. So it's the Lord speaking against wicked rulers, leaders, the wicked, and breaking their power. And he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. Well, we get a lot of that these days, continual strokes, continual lockdowns, etc. So it's continual with these people at the top. But anyway, even the fir trees rejoicing here, and then it goes on. Now you get a glimpse into how the underworld, where they go. How, now verse 9, Isaiah, verse 9, how from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. So he's talking to wicked rulers, wicked leaders, wicked people at the top, and you picture them, or this person, or that person, or these now dead. And this is the Lord saying where they're going. How from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. So you picture all of these other wicked leaders down there in hell being moved for these other would-be world leaders coming in to hell. How from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee. Right? So they're kind of greeting them in. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. Right? Here they are again. So the chief ones of the earth. Down there in the underworld, right? In hell and in Hades, at the heart of the earth, the place where Jesus went when he died. So it stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the earth. So all of these former kings, not really, when you look at it this way, it doesn't really put these kings in a good light. Generally, if not literally, pretty much generally, you'd have to say, speaking, all of these kings are not put in a good light, and they going down to the underworld. So hell from beneath, right, from beneath their feet, putting hell, Hades, as I prefer to call it personally, at the heart of the earth. So not quite hell yet, because hell, the talk of hellfire in the Bible doesn't really come in until after the 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth, when all the books are opened and the dead are judged out of those things which are written in the books. So up until that point, this talking about the kings of the earth, right, the wicked, right, are down there at the heart of the earth, where it also says in the book of Revelation that the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and Hades is the original writings. Death and hell, it says in the writings now, even in the King James version of the Bible, the original word would have been Hades, and therefore putting Hades, if not hell, all thrown into one word, right, at the heart of the earth. Now death and hell, death and Hades, gave up the dead which were in them, and the sea gave up the dead which were in it, so all those people that died at sea, right? And they all stand before God at the great white throne judgment. This is after the 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone, right? So how fire doesn't really come into the equation until after the 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth, when all the books are opened. So where are the dead up till that point? They're at the heart of the earth, looking at this in a dimensional setting, right? So Jesus gave up the ghost and he went down to the heart of the earth. So not his body, but spiritually, Jesus went to the heart of the earth. So to that other dimension, which is at the heart of the earth. So we get a glimpse into that place here in Isaiah, and it's the Lord himself speaking, and he's talking to wicked rulers, wicked leaders, wicked people who assume themselves to be the kings of the earth. So how, it says, from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming, right? It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. So these great men, these kings, eventually die and go down to the heart of the earth. And these kings and the great ones, these chief ones of the earth, have raised up from their thrones, and all the kings of the nations, all they shall speak and say unto thee. So kind of greeting them in. And you get a sense of them mocking, as they do on earth. Same in hell, same in Hades, same in the underworld. You picture them kind of mocking and jeering these kings as they come in to that underworld. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations, right? All those kings that have died before, all now down there in the underworld. All they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak? as we, art thou become like unto us. So they're now weak and all their power on earth gone. And they are as weak as every other king that is down there in the underworld. Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, it goes on, verse 11. And the noise of thy viols, well, that music that surrounded them and their big entrances and everything else into important meetings on important occasions and what have you. And the noise of thy viols, the worm is spread under thee and the worms cover thee. So they, that's like they're buried, but their spirits, right, gone down to the underworld, down into Hades, in hell, as it's called, in the writings in the King James Version of the Bible, even throwing these, even Sheol was the Old Testament version word for hell, and Hades was the New Testament word for hell. And they simply threw all of this into one word and called it hell. So the underworld where Jesus went. So you kind of get a glimpse into that underworld there where Jesus would have gone. And you picture those kings here, as it says in Isaiah, coming into hell. And these other kings mocking them because they are now as weak as they are. And they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou become as weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave and the noise of thy viols. Well, you maybe picture some of these wicked kings down there rubbing their hands together with glee when some other king that are from some other nation, maybe one of their enemies, is now down in Hades, in hell, in the underworld, and is as weak as them, and finally they kind of that'll teach you kind of thing. And there they are, all down there in hell, in Hades, these wicked kind of jealous, envious rulers. Wicked, their staffs being, and the sceptre of their power now being broken, and they being weak. Well, you can picture what it must be like down there by picturing what it's like up here. And you get a glimpse of that, really, in England when you look at the Houses of Parliament, all these envious, jealous leaders and prime ministers and what have you, always jeering and gloating over each other's failings and stuff, and always getting at each other and trying to bring each other down and everything else. And it's usually envy and jealousy and lust for power at the top, and all of this kind of still continuing on in hell, but they now being powerless and jeering each other as they did on earth, still going on in hell and mocking each other. So quite an ugly place, full of the usual ugly lusts of those who had a lust for power, and continuing in that lust, in mocking and jeering each other and gloating over each other's failings and becoming weak or not, just like they do on earth. So this really is the place where Jesus went. And you can kind of picture Jesus arriving there, and he was there for 3 days. Can you imagine how it must have been when Jesus suddenly showed up in the underworld, in hell, at the heart of the earth? So with that in mind, it's interesting that it's Good Friday yesterday, and now it's Saturday, and Jesus rose from the dead on Sunday. But the thing is with that, if you go with literally what it says in, let's go with, find the page, in Matthew. exact words, Jesus' words. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So you kind of picture there where Jesus would have gone to, what kind of people are down there. That just talking about the wicked rulers, the chief ones of the earth. Much like it was on earth, still going on down there, they gloating over each other's failings and everything else, like they do on earth, in envy and jealousy and lust for power and all that, still going on down there. But Jesus going down there to preach to such people. So even though we might kind of think ourselves serves them right, we've seen what they do to us. We've seen in this last year how they've wrecked the whole of everything, ruined so many people's lives with their continual strokes, as it was put in the book of Isaiah there, their continual strokes, with these continual variants and continued lockdowns, continued strokes of fear and anxiety and everything else that they've inflicted upon the whole world. We too, I guess, would be tempted to somewhat glow and think, well, it serves you right. You deserve everything you get down there in Hades, in hell. You asked for it. You begged for it. You deserve it. Well, we would, in all honesty, feel the same as them and rejoice kind of over them when they find themselves down in Hades, would be our mind, if we're to be honest. But Jesus actually going down there to preach to such people. For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So what was he doing down there? Now the thing is, it was Good Friday yesterday. And if you go literally with what the words say here, that Jesus was 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Now, let's imagine this might get a bit tricky. It's not always easy to get your head around these kind of figures. Thinking is not that hard, I guess. But anyway, I guess everyone has maybe done this. Maybe they had some inkling of the scriptures even when they were a little boy, or whenever you maybe sat down and thought about it for a few minutes. Jesus died on a Friday and rose again the 3rd day. But Jesus spending 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, like as Jonah, for as Jonah was for 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Well, how do you fit 3 days and 3 nights into Jesus dying on a Friday and rising again on a Sunday? Well, Jesus, let's say, died at 3 o'clock, which I looked it up earlier on, and that they say that in Israel, right, it gets dark about 7 o'clock this time of year. So Jesus died at 3 o'clock, let's say, right? That would be 4 hours daylight left. Now, the Jewish day starts as soon as the sun goes down at night, so the evening and the morning being the day, so to speak. So let's imagine for 1 minute that Jesus died on a Friday. So that leaves 4 hours, let's say, of daylight left. And then you would have night. So, and then you'd have day again on Saturday. So again, you see, you can't fit 3 days and 3 nights into Jesus dying on a Friday. That would only give, let's say, day 1 being Friday, that 4 hours. Day 2 being Saturday, that being a whole day of daylight. And then you've got Sunday night and Jesus rising again on Sunday. So, they say Jesus rose the 3rd day, right? So he dies on a Friday. That would be 4 hours of that day left, died at 3 o'clock. And then you've got, let's say day 1. Then you've got day 2, which would be Saturday. And then you've got day 3 rises again, the 3rd day being Sunday, which would have meant Jesus only spent 1 day and 4 hours at the heart of the earth. Whereas it says, for as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights, right, in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. It doesn't fit. 3 days and 3 nights doesn't fit with Jesus dying on a Friday. You can only get 4 hours of Friday, died at 3 o'clock, right? Look it up on the internet, it's easy these days. It's just dotted in and it comes up, and it gets dark in Israel now, about 2 minutes past 7. So, okay, look, he died at 3 o'clock. Let's look at this, step out the whole picture, right? He died at 3 o'clock. That only leaves 4 hours of daylight left. Then you got the Friday night, and then you got Saturday, which only gives you 1 day and 4 hours, right, of day. So you could call that 2 days. But where do you get your 3rd day from? People say, okay, he rose again the 3rd day. But it says he spent 3 days and 3 nights at the heart of the earth, not 1 day and 4 hours, right? So you think, well, how do you fit 3 days? For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days, not 1 day and 4 hours, but 3 days, right, and 3 nights at the heart of the earth. So they've made it kind of fit and kind of left the Jonah aspect of the prophecy out of the whole equation and made it fit with Jesus dying on Friday and rising again on Sunday being the 3rd day after Friday. But that doesn't allow for Jesus being 3 days and 3 nights at the heart of the earth. That only allows for 1 day and 4 hours, Jesus being at the heart of the earth. Like I say, it's not easy to get your head around all of this, but I don't know, has anyone ever sat down and thought about it? How on earth did Jesus spend 3 days and 3 nights at the heart of the earth? Well, it does actually, you might think, well, that's a massive thing, because the whole world is celebrating Jesus died on a Friday. But if you look into it, as others have, and I'm not saying it comes from my own mind, but I did read this once, and then you look into it for yourself, and let's see, this is where you get your answer from, and people can take it or leave it, as they say. Now, Jesus has already died here, right? We're in John chapter 19, verse 31. The Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, right? For that Sabbath day was an high day. Now, I also checked this out earlier on. I'm not trying to be Mr. Clever Clogs, But it turns out that it's a lot easier nowadays because we've got the internet. As soon as you've got a question, you can pop it straight in and you've got all this knowledge straight at your fingertips, let's be honest. And I've never really quite looked into this before, exactly this part of it, how many high Sabbaths are there. And it turns out there's 7 altogether, according to Got Questions and what have you, this sort of thing. So if that's right, so obviously you've got to double check these things. But according to what I read, and I'm not trying to be a scholar or being altogether thorough, but according to what I read, there's 7 high Sabbaths altogether. So that year, again, I got this idea from someone else, but there are all kinds of angles you can come at it from, and upon looking into it, it does make every sense. The Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, right? So you think, well, the Sabbath day for the Jews was always Saturday, not Sunday as we kind of do now, but Saturday. So it makes sense, the preparation, everything else, the next day being the Sabbath day. Jesus must have died on the Friday. Now, the problem with that is you can't fit 3 days and 3 nights into that, like as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale, right? So shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights at the heart of the earth. But it says in the book of John, this kind of gives you your answer here. People can take it or leave it. The Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath day was an high day. So there's let's say they have the normal Sabbath day, right? Every Saturday of every week of every month of every year, right? The Sabbath day. But it turns out, right, if you look right further into it, or not, you can go as far as you want with looking into things. And let's face it, there's no stopping place. You can go on forever sometimes. But you've got to arrive at a conclusion somewhere. But I looked at it earlier on. It does say there's 7 high Sabbaths in the Jewish calendar, let's say, for the year, whatever. For that day, it says that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day. For that day was an high day, so it was a high Sabbath, right? It didn't go into this in every one of the Gospels, but in the Gospel of John, it calls it a high Sabbath, right? The next day. For that day was an high Sabbath because the Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day. For that Sabbath was an high day, so it's a Sabbath day. But there is also the question of high Sabbaths. So you've got your normal Sabbath days, which I guess would be 52 weeks in a year. But add also to that these 7 high Sabbaths, right? That they also threw into the equation, let's say, of Sabbath days. So if you counted how many Sabbaths there were in a year, there's 52 weeks in a year, so 52 Sabbaths, plus these at 7 high Sabbaths, right? So that'd be 59 Sabbaths, right? Now, it happened to be that year it was a high Sabbath day the next day, not necessarily the normal Sabbath day being a Saturday, right? But a high Sabbath being the next day. The Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath was an high day, there being 59 Sabbaths for the Jews, right? You think, well, that won't fit because we all know the Jews have Sabbath day on a Saturday. There's only 52 weeks in a year. But actually, they have 59 Sabbaths in a year if you go with this special Sabbath. As I understand it, that is, right? Look it up yourself. But that Sabbath day was a high day. So they besought Pilate that their legs might be broken, that they might be taken away, right? They couldn't work on these Sabbath days. So it makes more sense that Jesus died on a Thursday, and the next day, being Friday, was an high Sabbath, and the next day after Friday would be the normal Sabbath. So you can, the prophecies of Jesus, the prophecy of Jesus, likewise as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights, right, in the belly of the whale, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights at the heart of the earth. Now, if you read the story of Jonah, right, you find that Jonah's ordeal began when they woke him up, relied upon memory here without going into the whole book, and it continued all day long, and you finally get to the bit where they cast lots and found out that it was Jonah who was the reason why. There was a big, massive storm at sea, and they was throwing out their cargo and everything else. They kind of, earlier on in that day, you picture that they went down and woke Jonah up and told him to come up and help sort things out, there being a storm, and they're throwing all this cargo overboard, right? So you kind of picture that Jonah must have been thrown in that water, right, into the sea, when they realised they couldn't save themselves. The only thing to do was to get rid of the guilty person, that guilty person being Jonah. So they throw Jonah into the sea. I guess they've been struggling all day against this storm. It appears that they woke Jonah up sometime in the day, maybe in the morning. Guess you usually sleep at night, and they woke him up. He was a passenger on the ship, so there'd be no reason for him to be up all night. He was asleep. They woke him up and said, "Wake up, awake thou, O sleeper," because there was a storm. So he going on the top of the deck of the ship, or wherever he went, and they trying to get rid of the cargo of the ship, so that this ship would better float and not sink in the waves. They couldn't sort the whole thing out, so they cast lots and found out that it was Jonah who was the guilty party. They still tried to continually save themselves and Jonah. They found they couldn't fight against God, the storms, and therefore they threw Jonah into the sea. You picture that this must have happened round about the same time that Jesus was placed onto the cross at the end of that day. So Jesus dying at 3 o'clock. Now, Jesus was on the cross between the hours of 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. So 6 hours Jesus was on the cross. And he finally gave up the ghost at 3 o'clock. So it must have been about 3 o'clock that Jonah was thrown into the sea. So that would be day 1. So likewise, as Jonah was 3 days, day 1, thrown into the sea, let's say, at 3 o'clock, and in the belly of the fish, as it's called in one place, belly of the whale, for 3 days and 3 nights. So likewise, as Jonah was 3 days, so that would be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days. And 3 nights, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night, right? So likewise, as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights, right, in the heart of the earth. So it really does fit, and you have to go with the sign of Jonas. The Jesus came to give us the sign of Jonas, the wicked Pharisees and rulers back then, saying to Jesus, "Show us a sign from heaven." Jesus saying to them, "There shall be no sign given but the sign of Jonas." So we really, really do need to go with the sign of Jonas, and to put the sign of Jonas above everything else, or on par with Jesus obviously dying and rising again, is the main point here. Of course, that Jesus died and rose again is the main the main message here. But Jesus did come to give us the sign of Jonas, as he did the Pharisees and the Jewish hierarchy and the leaders and the Jewish nation and even the whole world, right? Likewise, as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights at the heart of the earth. So for 3 days and 3 nights, Jesus was at the heart of the earth preaching to the spirits which were one time disobedient during the days of Noah. For this cause it says he went and preached to the dead being quickened by the Spirit. So Jesus gave up the ghost at 3 o'clock. And then his spirit went down there to the heart of the earth and preached to the spirits which were one time disobedient during the days of Noah. So you kind of picture Jesus going down there and preaching to them and even offering them a hope down there in Hades. And likewise, as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights at the heart of the belly of the whale, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights at the heart of the earth. Now Jonas was, God spoke to the fish when Jonas cried out, right, to God after being 3 days and 3 nights at in the belly of the whale. And then God spoke to the fish, it says, to the whale. And the whale vomited Jonah up upon the shore. And then it says that it was actually 3 days' journey, it says, to get to Nineveh from where Jonas was spewed up right onto the shore. But it says the word of the Lord came unto Jonas the second time, right? And said to him, go and warn that great city, Nineveh. Now, Nineveh, it says, was 3 days' journey, but Jonah this time feared God so much because of his whole ordeal being swallowed by a whale, being in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, that he got there in 1 day. So Jonas again being spewed up onto the shore after 3 days and 3 nights, and then getting to the city of Nineveh in 1 day, which would have took 3 days. So you kind of picture him fearing God and running there in haste rather than dragging his feet and running the opposite direction in trying to get away and going to Tarshish. So he must have been spewed out by that fish again, just like Jesus, just at the crack of dawn. So if we go with the sign of Jonas, and the next day being an high Sabbath, so Friday being an high Sabbath, then the normal Sabbath being on the Saturday. These words not mine. For the Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the bodies should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath day was an high day, right? Another Sabbath day being an high Sabbath, being on Friday, the normal Sabbath being on a Saturday, besought Pilate that their legs might be broken, that they might be taken away, right? Then came the soldiers and brake the legs of the first and the other, which was crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was dead already, they brake not his legs. So Jesus dying of a broken heart for the whole world, for every wicked ruler, king, leader, even for the Illuminati, even for the Rothschilds and all these people that maybe we sometimes would even love to hate and wish upon them to go to hell because of what they do. Jesus being that merciful, that he died for the whole world, for every single person that would ever be born here, that ever came here, that ever will come here. He died for the whole of mankind. He died for humanity. He died for the whole world. He was made flesh and became like us, flesh and blood, and then died as flesh and blood, died as a human being, died of a broken heart when God forsook him, died not of the cross. They tried to murder him and kill him on the cross, but they couldn't kill him and murder him. But Jesus gave his own life 6 hours into his ordeal. God forsook him whilst he was on the cross. And then Jesus died of a broken heart and then giving up the ghost, saying it was finished. And then he, being quickened by the Spirit, it says, quickened by God, went down to the heart, the earth, and preached to those that were one time disobedient during the days of Noah, wherein only 8 souls were saved, yet so as by water, which is a like figure of the resurrection. So back in the days of Noah, only 8, Noah and his family, were saved. But Jesus preaching to all the other wicked people down there, whose imaginations and thoughts of their heart was only evil continually, and the earth being filled with violence. And you get a picture of these wicked kings that in Isaiah that Jesus also would have preached to. So preaching to the very highest and to the very lowest of humanity, mankind. And Jesus dying of a broken heart to save us all, every single one of us. So praise Jesus. Likewise, as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights, just like Jonas. 3 days and 3 nights at the heart of the earth. So praise Jesus.